Welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream. Today I'm going to talk about The Only Freedom by Joel Goldsmith. It's just a miraculous book and I learned a lot. Before I go on, I want to say happy birthday to Tim Riley, who's directing, who's doing a great job, and he doesn't look a day older today. And I also want to thank my kids for having Satchel, who's a month old today, and he's looking great. And so is Lyle, who's going to be 3. So being a grandma is new for me, and sleeping with a cockapoo is also interesting. And a little storm last night, but I'm here and I'm excited to be here because The Only Freedom is just magnificent. It's just Joel at his best. Joel's a mystic, like Buddha, like Elijah, Moses. Jesus, he's a mystic, and he shares all of the principles of mysticism that have been throughout the ages present. They've always been with us because it's eternal knowledge. And even before Jesus came, oneness mysticism was present, and it was taught. Only Jesus, I think, found the ultimate language to help us wake up to processing our slow development, our unfolding. We are really grateful for the information that he shared with us. But Joel starts out today with talking about the new year, and he doesn't want us to think just about ourselves. When he thinks about the new year, it's not just January 1st, it's every second and moment of every day, where we take the pause and remember that we rest in spirit. We're enveloped in God. We are God consciousness only. There's no good and evil. There's no dimension here of humanness. So it's a big leap for a lot of us to not be too hard on ourselves, of which I confess, I am. I don't want to make mistakes, especially with Joel's work. I want so very much to not only grow with it, which is why I do it, but to honor what he is really saying. And so with The Only Freedom, freedom and liberty are what this book is about, and it's amazing. So when you have a new year, you got to think of the world. We are responsible for the entire world. Our concepts of what we learn from the infinite way, a movement, a way of life, is that we're all one soul, one body, one universe, and we're all connected. So we're responsible for what we look at. So what we look at is who we are, and if we don't look at it right, guess who gets that energy back? We can suffer at our own hands if we know we can't blame, we can't hurt anyone. The only one we can hurt is ourselves, because we're only responsible for our demonstration of spiritual development. No one else's. It's none of our business how anyone else seeks the kingdom of God, which Jesus really, really talks about. The kingdom of God, Jesus says, is within us. Now, in his day, speaking like that, and it was not popular with the Hebrew religion. He came and he said, look, I'm different. I come with a sword. I have a different kingdom to share. And needless to say, it didn't go over well with the Roman Empire. And he tried to be invisible. He tried to teach that. They frowned on it. They sentenced him, as we all know. He tried very hard to question whether that was a very necessary assignment, but in fact, he realized on some level his ability to listen to the invisible was that not only intense, but complete. His Christhood was complete. And as he listened, he went through his crucifixion and he rose, as we all know. He trusted that invisible spirit, and what a demonstration he made, which has changed the world for so many of us. It was a tough assignment. He passed with not only flying colors, he came out with the wounds in his hands and feet, and those who were open to his consciousness saw him and got that message, which was so huge. And the infinite way is all about, we want the mind that was in Jesus Christ. So now let's think about how we learn. The infinite way has 3 major principles. One is God is omnipresent, always with us, eternally, every moment, every second of every day. Omnipotence is the only knowledge, and wisdom comes from God. That's why we listen, because we want to hear that still small voice. And then we have omnipotence, which is God is the only power, the law of love, the law of sharing. You know, love multiplies itself. And it's an eternal grace that we give because we are sitting in the grace of God. There is an impulse in this whole world which is bringing us all home to our original knowledge of who we are. We talk about the Adam dream and we go through all of these shades of, gee, why we're separate. And then we find out there really wasn't an Adam dream. We just thought there was. There's perfection within us, my friends. And I think the major point of the only freedom is we consciously must act ourselves for us. So, old disciplined me, who's working on this, and which is why I love sharing this, because it helps me to remember every second and every moment of every day. We are in God's government, on His shoulder. We don't look to the humanness of this world for anything. We go into the silent vault of ourselves and we listen. And as we grow in the infinite way, our listening periods become longer and the pause becomes more frequent. That pause is, I remember who I am. I know what I'm here to do. I'm here to love one another. That is the major pretense of the infinite way. We love our neighbor as ourselves because we are one soul and we're responsible for each other. So, yes, we love friend and foe. Now, there are folks who block God, who are not interested at all in what we have to say, and that's okay. Maybe what Joel is suggesting is we serve like minds. We serve folks who are on a path to healing, who want to know who they are, and who do know who they are, and they're drawn to us. People come and from all over the world, they're drawn to what we have to say because they're right there. Joel says we should go out each day and say, my peace I give the world. The Christ peace within me is for everyone, and I share that. I exude that energy today. That is what I'm going to do. If we said that all day long, how wonderful that would be. You know, it's kind of interesting that Joel brings up the good old days, which we all have good old days when we were in so many phases of being busy, raising kids, going to school, working so many jobs, the good old days. Now, Joel is wonderful in sharing that who the heck wants those when we've got something that's even better, as we've gotten through a lot of assignments that have kept us maybe very busy where we couldn't be inner. But once we get to a point where we are inner, sometimes we might notice that family disappears a little bit, or the friends we used to have aren't interested in what we have to say or who we are. Things fade. Our whole universe around us dissolves certain folks that we can't either grow with or share with or bring oneness to the entire world with. And that's okay. I needed to read that because sometimes we all suffer so from guilt and martyrdom and why couldn't I have done this for someone? And that is not our job. Enlightenment is only our job, not anyone else's demonstration. So try and not think that way. Just work on yourself. Also, watch those idols in church. You know, there's the devil. There are idols that can actually come back and take us away from the presence because there's fear with climate and with changes in the world and all the stuff you hear. Certainly, if you turn the TV on, I mean, we're inundated with fear. And actually, what is so good about that is that can force us to think about what can I do actually to eliminate that fear. I'm not going to buy into that, but either I can stand up and try and represent a movement to help that, which would be great, but I can also use my mind and join with those minds as I share the Christ peace every single day. It multiplies itself, my friends, as we share it. It's within us. It's an impulse. It's been given to us. It's a gift. We are realized by God, like it or not. We are whole, complete, and perfect all the time. Now, right this very second. So we bought into humanhood. Yeah, we kind of fell for a lot of stuff. And Joel is so sensitive about hypnotism and mesmerism. He says some of the most spiritual folks get mesmerized and they fall back. So that's comforting to know when you're not on the path all the time, that you've been gobbled up, and sure enough, you got a memory of something that came back, and you're immersed in it, and you can't get away from it until you have to sit back and say, gosh, I can do better than that, because I know what that means. That just means I'm not grounded, I'm not centered, I'm not remembering the realization of the presence. So my friends, we need to meditate. Meditation is a conscious decision we make. It's not floating around out there. We actually have to sit down and do it ourselves. It's an act of our consciousness that we sit and we rest, and we can use words of truth, which is prayer. Anything from the New Testament that we can read and be inspired by, those words are fine, but you have to leave the words and you have to let them take you to the presence. Everything is about, Joel uses the word click. I like Gregorian chant. People have smells, they have feelings. I'm a musician, so I gravitate to putting on something beautiful that helps me rest in the presence. However you do it does not matter. It's, God's miracles and his presence is unpredictable, to say the least. It's never maybe going to show up the same way, or it can have great humor to it. I've had amazing things show up that have had me chuckling about an answered prayer that I didn't expect to come that way. It's very, very nice. So my friends, think about the families that you have, the friends that you have, and the mission that you have, especially when the space comes in your life. Or let's put it this way, you've read a lot of spiritual teachers, you've read a lot of books. If you're like me, you've gone through all of these paths to becoming Christ conscious. And they're all perfect. And for people who like metaphysics, something overcoming something else, or church, where they gravitate to something there that makes them feel right, there's not a thing wrong where anybody is. We're all attracted, and we should keep trying for fresh mana every day. If you get stuck or you feel a little bit like, oh, I'm not being moved, ask for fresh mana. Now, we go from the material plane, we go to metaphysics, and then when we get to the mystical plane, there's only the conscious remembrance of the Christ experience, the feeling of God. That's all it is. It's only communicating. It's only communion within. It's not, as we say, the metaphysics of something trying to overcome something else for it to disappear. We go much further than that. It's much simpler. A new definition for sin is it's just not there. There's no sickness, there's no age, there's none of that. So I kind of think that's cool. That's a new definition of sin. It's gone. And then we think about our bodies. Well, I kind of like this one because having held little Satchel, who's a month old today, and such an amazing experience to see how he's grown in a month and how his cells and his hair and everything is sort of taken care of itself. Ever noticed when you had a wound, it just sort of heals itself? It's like our bodies are reincarnating all of ourselves, and we go into other stages where we're getting taller and we're getting bigger and our brains are different. And then we get to stages where we see that our hair keeps growing in and our nails keep coming back in, and we see that this magic of our bodies, it's just like, what it took me to is that we're not that body, and even the old age that we might fear isn't there either. We're just evolving. The bodies are evolving, getting ready for a transition into something else. When the body is no longer here, it is somewhere else, and heavens will only find out what that will be. But wherever we are on the spiritual path, it will be there and better. You will never go back to anything you've overcome with your trials and your tribulations. So just remember, the bodies may die, but you don't, because you're invisible, as Jesus showed us on the cross. What guts. What he knew, which is the infinite way, wants us to have the mind that was in Jesus Christ. And that's a beautiful thing. And he also mentions another definition for the crucifixion is that we're all weird. When we get on this path and we talk this language, which we're supposed to be very private and quiet about, we've crucified our humanhood to dare to take the sword that Jesus spoke of and hack away at that humanhood. I know I read that he went into the temple and chased out the money changers. I mean, he was a rebel. He was from the Essene order, and they were an antagonistic order toward the Hebrew church. And what Jesus had to say was he was strong in what he knew because he knew the guidance was perfect and constant and always. So we want that. I want that. And this is why I do this work. Because every time I read another Joel book, of which there are like 50 and lots of tapes and study groups, you know, you read the word. For me, I take those notes and then I reread them, and I finally find my soul is catching a lot of it. It's understanding more from my studies. But then we leave that and we go off with this new skin that we've just shed. We've got a new life, a new way of feeling comfort, of feeling at peace, being mellower, being kinder, being more generous. You know, it's not going to be what we say or read, it's going to be our demonstration. How do we manifest our inner life? We show it by not preaching, no preaching allowed. No trying to tell anybody your path is better than theirs. We cannot judge another soul for where they are, because think of all the places you have been on your spiritual journey where you absolutely wrapped yourself around a practice that worked. And what's so beautiful about Awaken the Dream, for 25 years I was interviewing all these wonderful guests who had what worked for them. And it was just one miracle after another. And then I realized after 25 years and getting just a hair older that it was time for me to really focus, which is why I do Joel Goldsmith, because I have, with all that I've done since being a teenager and from going into the light, which always changes you. You can never stop wanting to get back to that place. No matter how hard you try, it's a part of your life. You find something you vibrate to. And Joel, as a mystic, the mystic of Jesus, Moses, Elijah, was simple. I need simple. I can't do lessons, I can't do readings, I can't do affirmations. Are great if they take you into a prayer life of silence. But just repeating things over and over again is not the name of the game. If an affirmation can take you deeper within yourself, you got the name, you've got it. You're doing great. So read the New Testament. The Old Testament's all about punishment. We don't want to go there. The Infinite Way is the New Testament. The Infinite Way wants us to have the mind that was in Jesus Christ. And the Infinite Way is telling us in no uncertain terms, it is very possible. And it's possible right now to have that. So I want you to really take that in. You can have that to the degree you see your brothers and sisters whole. You get all of that back. No matter how anyone shows up, you see them for who they really are in spirit. I can't get over how, thinking about the invisibility that Jesus experienced, how he trusted that inner word, that total guidance, that going into the wilderness by meditating, by being quiet, being told exactly what his life was to be and where he was to go and what he was to say and how he would teach. And he did it. And that's why, with all the mystics that had been in the world, that Jesus seems to be the prime example of someone who was a way shower. He gave us the truth. He just gave us this beautiful story, which Ra is just all over the world in many forms, and it's really, really beautiful. So my friends, when you have a new year, which is every day, remember, it's not January 1st. It's every moment of every day. So you have to find these periods. Start your day with protective information. Get your cloak on. Get ready for what you're about to go out to experience. Think about talking to God for that protection, to ask to be armed and ready. So when you do go out into the soil of your life, which we all do, you're going to get inundated. So can you get there first before you get hit with something that could affect you? That's what we need to do. We protect ourselves first thing in the middle of the night if you wake up. Perfect time to meditate. Be ready. And that's a big assignment. Joel said this, not for the weak-kneed. No, it's for the strong. It's for those with intention, with discipline, who want it. If you want it, you can have it. And Joel, as his mother said, all he could say was, I just want to find God, Mom, as he left the business world and watched his dad heal by a Christian Scientist and had a complete healing. And then as a practitioner of Christian Science, doing all of those healings and then finding that the politics often in a church can divide people. So he needed to create this movement which said, no organization, wherever we go, the presence is with us. We don't preach about it. We don't open church doors about it, although churches are accepting it. Metaphysical study groups are looking at Joel's work. I was saying to my son this morning, mysticism is it. This is the height, the simplicity of what we all need to know. It's one soul. We are responsible for the world. We have to help the world see that it's all one. We are individualized souls, and we've all been given a gift. And God wants us to talk to Him. And the reason being is He wants us to realize Him. And if we don't open up to Him, to the infinite, to the energy, the perfection of life, if we don't do that, it can't happen. He's knocking on our doors all the time. He's just waiting. Jesus found that out and was never, ever let down, ever. So my friends, just know that pause where you remember, no matter where you are in the midst of your day, you can change by consciously looking at life differently, by seeing everyone as perfect and whole, no matter what they look like. And even if they're not going to be in your life, if your family, some of them leave you because they think you're nuts, or you just find, things shift around you as you grow and change, where the good old days are no longer there, and you have a new assignment which is even more exciting than any of them. You have an opportunity to share and multiply God's gifts, no matter how you do it. Think about what you love to do. That's a hint. What do you love to do? Do it through music. Write a beautiful song that moves souls. Paint a picture. Write a book. Be a janitor and be kind and mellow and generous and be a living example no matter what you do of the Christ presence within you. People will feel that. They'll know it on some level. And those who are open to where you are will find you from all over the world. So no matter how you manifest, God wants you to hear Him. He wants you to think of the presence all day long. And it is hard when memories from the past can wake you with a dream that are very unpleasant. That's like a dirty trick to me, that you have to not only erase it, but realize, boy, have I been mesmerized. Boy, have I been frightened about things. This world is a tough one. But the sword of the Spirit can chop its way right through humanhood once we realize that was Jesus's gift, the sword. So my friends, I'm winding down. Again, thank you, Tim Riley, for directing and for having a birthday tomorrow. It's going to be a great year. I've already looked into it for you. It's a 3. It's very creative. And coming out here to see my kids, to celebrate life, to do what I can to help, never knowing how that's going to manifest, it makes us more flexible in how we work our lives when we don't plan everything. We don't pin everything down. We don't say, God, it's got to look this way. I want it to look this way. Try not to do that. Try not to outline your life. And one way to do that is the daily inner work where I don't know where my mana is going to fall. I want it fresh. Help me not to outline my needs and desires because you have a better idea for what you have in store for me. To me, that's huge. We all have to remember that. Don't pin yourself down to something that could be less than what's in store for you. So my friends, thank you so much for listening to me on Awaken the Dream and for me sharing the only freedom. I will talk to you again soon, and thank you.